imagine to stand in front of a sinkhole and there's a Hindu temple half going in the water with a lot of kids jumping in the pool and with some turtles swimming in there and with this Hindu priest praying. There's some smoke coming everywhere through the temple.
Off Gassing, a scuba podcast with host Nick Hogel. Remote explorations come with challenges that many would not dare pursue. Logistics, planning, and mental preparation needed for such a task are not for those who do not welcome adversity. In this episode, I sit down with renowned explorer and GUE instructor Max Fahr. It was great to sit down with Max to hear his thoughts about the importance of proper training and teamwork, from his early days of diving to exploring the remote, sacred waters of the Bottomless Cave in northern India, and much more. Please enjoy. Max, how are you doing? It's this morning for you, correct?
Absolutely, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's as you can see in my window back behind me, it's still dark. It's winter time in Zurich. Yeah,
Oh, okay, so you're based in Zurich.
I am. I am. I moved here 2.5 years ago. I'm originally from south of Germany.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm excited to hear more about Germany and eventually what brought you over to Zurich. But I'll throw out my first question for you is tell me how and why you became a scuba diver. Tell me about that first breath underwater. Was it amazing? Was it horrible? Was it this is all right? Tell me all about it.
Actually, one of my earliest memories in my childhood is when I was 5 years old. I was always asking plenty of questions to my uncle about scuba diving. He was like a traditional holiday diver in Egypt, but in the 90s area when diving in Egypt was still kind of special and full of underwater life, completely different to nowadays. And I was really going on his nerves that he takes me diving, and it took me 3 years to do so. And when it was 8 years, he finally took me to a local lake, but with good visibility, but really cold water, and I enjoyed every single second. As soon as I put my head under the surface, it felt absolutely natural for me, and I knew that this is what I would love to do for the rest of my life. Fell in love straight away.
I'm assuming at that age it was probably just kind of like it wasn't training, it was just more of like a try dive from your uncle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, my parents never supported me with diving. So it was a long and hard path for me. So I joined like the Bavarian water rescue team because they offered free scuba dive training. But first of all, it was more about snorkeling, so ABC training for a really long time. And I was running every Tuesday to the next village with my fins and snorkel mask in my backpack. Did the training there and hitchhiked back at 9 p.m. It took me quite a while to when I was my first real scuba gear, and my first proper training was kind of military style in the pool with assembling everything underwater and stuff like this. But I and a lot of sport in between. But I really liked it. Yeah, but when it was a tough time to gain some experience, so when I was around 16 or 15, I joined a scuba diving club, and when it worked a little bit better.
Well, so with the Bavarian club, did you earn a certification or was it just kind of an open water certification, I'm assuming?
I did, yeah. It was CMAS training, so it's still kind of popular in Europe. Like CMAS comes from French military diving, and it's quite popular in German, let's say, diving clubs. Actually, with training, if you really do it like it is in the books, it's rock solid, I would say. But it doesn't work out for dive centers because it's too much training which you need to invest in the student to gain money. So for commercial reasons, it doesn't work out. But yeah, for me it was perfect, and as I learned in these tough conditions, I always was kind of a mental strong diver, which also helped me in cave exploration later. And I at the beginning of my dive career I had no money at all, so some of the old divers they gave me an old wetsuit, like a two-piece wetsuit. I had no dive computer, I just had a stopwatch. So I just stopped my diving time and explored at the weekend all the local lakes around, which are not too deep, around 10 meters. So I always dove to the deepest point. So I didn't and stopped the time, so I knew what I had to write in my logbook. And yeah, when I met a really nice Italian girlfriend on a dive trip to Croatia, it was around 2010. I was already in the military at the time, so got my own car and a little bit of money in my pocket. So I could have afford a little bit more dive equipment. And at the weekends, whenever I could, I drove down to Italy to meet this girl and go diving together. She started to work at dive center in Genova, and they were driving to the Heaven wreck, which is actually one of the largest wrecks in the world, like a super tanker. So I was getting more and more involved into the technical world of the sport, and she was studying marine biology at the time, and in her study break, she was always guiding other divers in the south of Italy or sometimes in Egypt. I said, okay, I need to do this as well. I applied for a dive master job in Thailand. So this was the time when I decided to dive my first dive computer because I knew a dive master needs to have a dive computer to tell the customers about the dive parameters for the logbook writing part after the dive. And when I came back from Thailand, it was January. I arrived in Munich with my swim shorts and flip-flops. It was a lot of snow, and it was really, really cold. And the dive club called me for some reason and said, "Hey Max, we're going ice diving," and said, "Okay, ice diving. That's a good reason to invest into a dry suit now." So I went into the local dive shop. I just had one dry suit, an old one was hanging there for years, and I got a good price. And I said, "Okay, I'm taking it to the ice diving event." When I was in the ice diving event, I actually met a guy who said, "Hey, Max, I heard about this mixed gas diving with helium, etc. Where these guys are doing it at Lake Constance, like the biggest lake in south of Germany, really, really long one, 65 kilometers long, over 200 meters deep." And said, "Okay, that sounds very interesting. I need to do this." And they dive with double tanks and stages, etc. So I went down to Lake Constance and met my first trimix divers, more or less, because all the technical aspects in the Italian scene was still a single tank and the deep air diving and so on. Yeah, when I directly did my trimix class, a lot of open circuit trimix dives at the day to the wrecks in the lakes and also back into heaven, but deeper and with the right gas. And when I was 23 years old, I did a military dive class as well. It was 2 months training in the Baltic Sea. And when I came back, I directly did my first 100-meter dive when I was 23 years old.
Oh, wow.
Open open circuit was actually it's still until now my deepest open circuit dive. I've done plenty of 100-meter plus dives, but all on rebreathers later.
Just a question. So when you went to what part of Thailand you completed your dive master training out there?
I was in Kokut, so actually I had already completed CMAS freestyle training when I arrived in Thailand, but Thailand is yeah, petty country,
Yeah.
and honestly, I met someone who gave me a petty dive master for 2 beer in a bar.
Oh,
And I said, "Yeah, Max, you're a good diver. You're guiding already. Whatever you need a dive master, I just sign it off."
okay.
And this is so I have a petty dive master somewhere, but I've never done anything for it.
Yeah.
But paying 2 beer, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. When so you obviously came up in some cold water diving environments. It must have been quite the nice change. I'm assuming diving in Thailand, having it be pretty warm water. How was it when you got back? Like getting back to the cold water, did you enjoy? Did you miss it? Did you enjoy it, or was it like, man, this is some pretty? Because I would assume, yeah, diving in the Baltic would be pretty different than diving in Thailand.
when you're in your early 20s, your body can take a lot more, and you don't have these kind of thinking, you know. When I was in this time, I was in the military special forces, and I was drinking in a bar until 4 o'clock in the morning when running home to the barracks. And the first thing I started in the morning was doing a long march or next running. I just didn't care. So it was at this time it was no problem. Nowadays it's a little bit of is a little bit different, and I think like temperature is like the biggest obstacle in diving at all. When I've done quite some diving in Florida last year, and it's so easy to do long dives with very little equipment, like very little undergarment, no gloves and stuff like this. It's amazing. Like in Europe, especially on exploration dive, temperature is your biggest enemy. It's so dangerous if you just have a leak in your dry suit, or just you're just cold, your decompression quality goes so low, it is become like really dangerous. Beside like the comfort part, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, for sure. So I do not have very much cold water experience, and it's something that I'm hoping to change. I mean, I've joked around on the podcast before, telling people like, oh, I've done Texas cold, which is it's obviously a joke because it doesn't get cold. I mean, for me it got cold, but yeah, like you're saying, it would probably be like a warm bath for some people. But back to the technical side of it. So when you started getting into the technical side of it, how was your foundation going in? Like, was it a tough learning curve to buoyancy, trim, propulsion? I know for me it was kind of tough, so I always like to ask other people like, how was your transition? I guess going from like a recreational fun, I don't want to say fun diving, but sport diving into, okay, now we're getting into technical diving. The stakes are a little bit higher. The skill set needs to be higher. How was that transition for you?
Actually, at that time, like in early 2010, so 2011, it was just like I was just like doing it. Like from a pedagogic side, it was not the best classes, I would say. If I look back with my experience, what I have right now, I would recommend everybody to do GUE fundamentals. That's the best class ever. I'm a GUE instructor by myself now, and I've redone all my classes. But at that time, I started into technical diving with a nitrox advanced class. So it was basically deep air diving and decompressing with pure oxygen. This is how I started, and when it got deeper, let's say 60-meter plus, helium got involved. Yeah, it was kind of basic, old school, let's say, but the course structure, the pedagogic side, the tips and tricks. Yeah, if I look back, I would say to the 20-year-old Max, don't do it, do GUE fundamentals. But yeah, it is what it is, and I gained a lot of experience. That's for sure, and I know how let's say how not to do it or how I could do it better, and yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, no, and that's such a great outlook too. Obviously, I feel like once you start taking a lot of courses and your career or your time in the industry starts becoming longer, you kind of start looking back and everybody probably has had a bad instructor here and there or some bad influences, but to look at it and say, okay, I just learned what not to do, to have that positive aspect.
I wouldn't say that the instructor was bad, you know. It's just like he didn't know better. He's a great diver, and he definitely knows what he's talking about, but he didn't know better how to teach me. How's the pedagogic side? I need to explain this to when my student reaches this and this point, or learns this and this, and improves his learning curve. Yeah, so I just I at this time I learned with trial and error. Let's say at the end of the day, equipment wise, I ended after a lot of trials at the DIR open circuit system. And also at a very early stage, like in 2015, I joined the DIR cave diving group and learned it like like this way. But my fundamentals class myself, I was already Trimax instructor and had a lot of cave experience. I did in 2019. I did my GUE fundamentals, and 3 years later, I became an instructor for GUE.
Well, I was going to ask how you found GUE, but you were diving with a DIR style cave group before GUE.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It was, so a lot of team members had a GUE background, and they told me, "Hey, Max, have a look at this class. It's a game changer. We all know that you are a good diver, but with some tips and tricks and with style of diving, you will love it." And there's also a really good friend of mine is an instructor trainer for GUE, and yeah, I got a call and said, "Hey, Max, that would be your thing. Come to us and become an instructor." So when I did fundamentals class, this was my goal straight from the beginning. I even didn't had doubles at the time. I was just in rebreathers. So I was uh, I was renting some doubles from a friend, and yeah, straight got the tech pass and then continued.
So, how did you find your way into the overhead environment? Was it just kind of the area that you're in, or was it from the get go you just was drawn in by it?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. So the area where I'm from, it's called the Swabian Alp. It's like let's say a middle high mountain area. So like the highest peak is 1,000 meters, and it's full of caves everywhere, and most of them are water filled, but it's a really, really challenging condition. So I would describe like the Swabian Alp cave diving. You can compare it to British cave diving, like British cave environment. But I was always very interested to go in these caves, also with dry parts. And at one point, you are standing in front of a sump and you want to go through. And I was found it interesting to dive into something. Also, in my recreational time, I always love to dive into wrecks or swim throughs in reefs and stuff like this. I always liked it. So after my trimix class, I did cave classes, like all of them with different agencies. Yeah, but later on, I've redone all my cave classes with GUE later. But yeah, this is how I got drawn into. And when the exploration part of cave diving, which is completely different to, let's say, holiday cave diving, completely different aspects, started very early, like in with different groups. Let's say I'm still active in the same groups. It's three different groups basically. The DRR groups called Cave Base. We're doing projects all over Europe. I'm in this group for, yeah, let's say 10 years. And when it was a local exploration group, a Speleo group, HF GOK, it's the name. We're exploring like the caves in the Swabian Alp area. Previous times we've explained all over Europe, France, Italy, and so on. And the third group I'm in is called SCAP, Supramonte Karst Exploration Project. We are exploring the caves in the Supramonte region, which is in east coast of Sardinia. Yeah, Sardinia is a great place for cave diving. I've worked there on my friend's dive center, Toddy Velde. He's also well known in the cave diving community, and I've been there plenty of times for different projects. But our main project, let's say for the last 3 years, is a Belto Rente project, a multi-sump project for several days. Last time we've been was in August this year, where we stayed like 6 nights or so in the cave, multi-sump. So now we have 7 sumps. It's over 10 kilometers long. Quite interesting project. It has still a lot of potential. It might become the biggest or longest multi-sump cave in Europe.
Oh,
It's,
wow.
can be. It can be. Right now it's still Pozo Azul in Spain, but Beltorrente is going and going.
Okay, okay. So when approaching a project, is it just kind of I know some I'm assuming the project in Sardinia, the one that you were just speaking about, that one's been ongoing, but like when you're approaching a new project or a potential project, are you like sending people out there to scout? Is it just kind of like, okay, we're doing dry caving, not bringing any scuba gear, and then we'll come back and bring scuba gear if needed? Can you kind of tell me a little bit about how you go about finding or starting a project?
Yeah, that's a really really good question. I'm happy that you asked. Actually, first of all, you have to be interested in the topic, and I personally I like the scouting part a lot. It starts with checking out maps or Wikipedia is also a great resource for information on and the internet itself. We can find a lot of previous projects which have been started in the 60s and ended in the 80s, let's say, and still have potential. Or you just hear about different caves, and when or regions, or sometimes you just see a photo, and when it is exactly how you said, you just go where by walking, let's say, or hiking first of all, and check out the location. How can I get there? Do I need to upside? Do I need to have a long marching distance, or is it diving straight from the beginning? Whatever. And when you start with a little setup, like if it's just like a small side mount setup or just doubles, whatever the situation looks like. Yeah, when you try to sort your assets, I mean, you not always need a big team like Cave Base. Sometimes it's just a team of two can do exploration. Sometimes you need a big team, especially if it comes to remote logistic problems. Yeah, this is how everything starts. But at the end of the day, let's say 99% of the cave divers are doing holiday diving, and this is absolutely okay, and the fun part of it, and it's really good like this. But you will never find a new passage if you just go always like the same routes, and you're just always going to Ginny Springs, let's say, and diving in the main tunnel, you will never find a new passage. That's impossible. So you need to go off the road and try new things. And it's plenty of times it's disappointing. Let's say you just go where the cave goes nowhere, or it's just a cavern or whatever, or not diveable at all. Conditions are too tough. Or yeah, I had this plenty of times, but this is like the exploring mindset. You need to go somewhere where nobody goes. This is how it works. And you need to inform yourself. And sometimes people ask me, hey, how do you find these new caves? I said, look, it's so easy nowadays. Go into Google, do some reading, and when go there and scout.
I'm a very new cave diver. I just became certified earlier this year, and it's something that is started to pique my interest, which is really funny because even dry caving started to appeal to me more after I got into cave diving, and I'm like, oh, well, let's go explore some dry caves, kind of see what's going on, and then living out here I live in Malaysia, and I know that there's a group going around in Malaysia. There's some people going around in Thailand. Most of Southeast Asia has kind of their groups going around, especially Indonesia is another one. A question that I guess like I wanted to ask, or I guess like researching. How do you know a place is going to be good for cave diving? Obviously, like there's known places like Mexico or Florida, or even like you're saying in Europe. So how like are there ways to tell like, oh, okay, this area is probably ripe for cave diving, just talking to the locals and them telling you like, oh, there's water caves here and there. Are there kind of any pieces of advice that you could give to a new explorer?
So basically speaking, it's like the karst areas. The karst is a kind of stone material, let's say, which can be washed out very easily and form water-filled passages. In these concentrated areas, it's very likely that you find plenty of caves. Let's say in Europe, like the probably most interesting area is ex-Yugoslavia, or the coast down to Albania, Greece, let's say, with a lot of exploration potential. And worldwide speaking, I would say like the most interesting part is Indonesia. There's a lot of karst area. There's not too much exploration going on in Africa. There's some karst areas. Actually, funny enough, yesterday night I did some reading about African karst with a glass of wine. It's very interesting. Yeah, so I would look for the cast areas. I mean, there are some, let's say, single cave events, like totally dislocated from the big areas, but usually the karst areas are the places to go. Like
Okay.
Yucatan is like everybody knows the Yucatan
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
It's of course it's like one of the biggest karst areas. So it's thousands of caves are located there. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like that, and they're still finding new passages there. So it's even though like I'll hear people be like, "Oh, everything's been explored," and then like all of a sudden you hear about some other passages being explored. It's quite exciting to just think about. Obviously, I'm so far away from it, but being able to like lay new line in Virgin Passage is like, man, this would be amazing. But at the same time, I'm like, that's so far away from where I am in my cave diving right now. But we could all dream, right?
Yeah, but it's funny what you said because like there's some truth behind this because the easy stuff is all done. Let's say, like if you want to lay new line nowadays, it's either very deep, very long distance from the entrance, very remote where you need speleo logistics like upstyling, rope techniques, etc., or like really far in the jungle. Let's if you speak about Mexico or somewhere high in the mountains, stuff is. So it's getting more and more exhausting for the new generations. There is stuff to do, plenty of stuff to do, but it's also it's going more extreme. Like the easy stuff is done. Like if you find a cave like which is virgin straight from the beginning, it's very rare to find. We're still out there. Sometimes it's also a new if you find a new passage in known caves, it's usually found during mapping, during survey, where the people measure all the parameters in the cave, and then we think, there's a side passage here and there, and but like the easy case where you drive with a car and just fall into the water and you lay line, yeah, this is all done, yeah, let's say.
Well, speaking of projects, I was wondering if I could hear a little bit about the project that you were a part of in India.
Yes, of course, I would love to talk about this. So India is definitely one of the more interesting projects. I first saw a photo of this place called Bimkund, yeah, 10 years ago on a Speleo conference. I saw this photo and I always had it in my mind. I need to go there. Such an impressive photo of a sinkhole inside a Hinduistic temple. It was a funny coincidence where I was selling one of my DPVs over Facebook, and I got in contact with a guy who runs a film company in Berlin. And I was talking with him about this, but I'm planning to go there for a scouting trip, just alone with my backpack. And he said, "Hey, yeah, he is in the filming industry and would love to shoot a documentary. Would be very interested. So maybe he can join." I said, "Yeah, of course you can." And he also got very involved in the planning part and logistic part of this first scouting trip was in 2022. And so we went there and it was actually, yeah, kind of virgin straight from the beginning. Let's say it was a little bit line of down to 20 meters or so, but basically nobody dived there, and especially not in the cave because the sinkhole goes straight down to 60 to a muddy slope, and then the cave starts in 60, 65 meters. And when it's going, it's a Vaucluse style of cave, so it's going very deep and straight down. But the conditions are wonderful. It's perfect visibility as far as your light reaches, very warm water. And yeah, it has the biggest underwater chambers I've ever seen in my whole life. It's unbelievable. Like the first chamber goes down to 125 meters and goes moreover in a cascade situation or a big slope. And then there's plateau on 150 meters. And when the big shaft is coming, we called it the Varuna shaft. Varuna is the water god in the Hindu mythology. After this plateau, there's an edge, which reminds me to the wall diving in Lake Constance. Actually, you're standing at the, or you're diving over the edge, and it's going like straight down. It looks like someone cut it with a hot knife through a piece of butter. You know, it's like. straight down, and you look to left and right, and you don't see any walls. Also not in front of you. Even if you have perfect visibility, you don't see any walls. It feels like diving in a massive lake. And yeah, you feel like very small and very lost in this huge room. And yeah, in the dive plan, we agreed to turn on 150 meters, but we couldn't stop. we had we had a good bottom gas in the rebreather and said, let's go a little bit. So we fell down the wall to 171. This is where we first found the first tire of possibility. We did a very bad tire first of all. Had to repair it later a little bit. Yeah, going. It's going further down, and 171 is actually we found out later is the Indian death record, and we could have gone deeper with both of us. Ollie, my dive buddy, and me, we felt really really good. The problem why we couldn't go deeper is because we had not enough decompression gas. When you get oxygen and helium in India, you just get 130 bars in the big 50-liter tanks. Like the filling logistics and everything was a nightmare. Also, like you rented 20 tanks, five of them were not usable. We were still half filled with water, leaking. The valve threads were not usable, so we had to do a lot of improvisation to get the tanks filled and try to organize some adapters and so on. It was very interesting project. And yeah, when people ask me before the project, Max, what was your favorite dive? I would say, yeah, I've done many cool dives in my career, let's say. But after the project, I can definitely say like BIMCon was the best dive I've done in my whole life. It's unbelievable. And I'm very, very happy to have that I had the chance to do a dive like this also in this scenario. If you imagine to stand in front of a sinkhole and there's a Hindu temple half going in the water with a lot of kids jumping in the pool and with some turtles swimming in there and with this Hindu priest praying. There's some smoke coming everywhere through the temple and going through a big stone window in the roof. And the scenario, it feels like straight out of a Tomb Raider movie. It's undescribable. When Ollie and me came to the temple 2022, like with the very first time, with no dive gear, we arrived in the temple, and you have to imagine like on top of the cave is a school for a Hindu religion school for kids. And when with stairs, artificial stairs going down to the old temple right at the water side. And all of me walked down, there was nobody. So it's just us, just the two of us. And we were talking about this project for 10 years. It was always in my mind, hey, we have to do BIMCon, we have to do BIMCon. At one point, we have to do BIMCon. It was just in our dreams. And now we finally realized we have been there. There's absolutely nobody, just the two of us. And the sun came through the window in the roof with the smoke from the with smoke sticks in the air, and yeah, I still get goosebumps if I just think about this moment when we were standing in front of a sink. I said, "Hey, we finally made it! Now it's the time to go." And yeah, I tell you a little secret. I've never spoke about this before, but actually, I need to go back. I've been there two times. Like the first was the scouting trip where we discovered the cave, and the last trip with a Rebus where we did a really deep dive. But I'm still thinking about this project pretty much every single day, and yeah, there's no chance. I need to go back and continue there. Probably, yeah, as soon as possible. Let's say. First of all, we will wait until the movie comes out. There will be a cinema movie about the project, and after this comes out, we try to find some sponsors because it's financially wise, it's quite challenging, let's say. You need a lot of logistic. You need drivers, you need translators, you need the logistics. You need to fly there with your equipment. You need to get a permission from the forest department and from the locals, from the Hindu school, and etc. etc. So it's not that easy. It's not drive and dive. It's a lot of planning involved, and a lot of money involved. Let's say that you need to realize this project. But yeah, it's in my priority list of the projects. It's it's very very high, and I need to go back, and I think I will go back. And when I think it's a good cave to dive some records, and also to explore a lot of pretty cool cave. And like from the mythology, like the locals say, like the cave is bottomless, and they say it's connected to the ocean, which I personally think it's the connection to the ocean is pretty much impossible. It's that far inland. It's just like a myth. But bottomless so far, I can say it's true. Yeah,
It's pretty far north in northern India. Is that correct?
that's correct. Yeah, it's still like 14 hours driving from New Delhi. Like you totally underestimate the size of India. India is such a huge country. What many people don't know, if you look at the globe, is like the relations are not. It's not the. They don't show the true distances. You know, the closer a country is to the equator, the bigger it is, and the more far away it bigger appears on the globe, but the real distance is smaller. Let's say, for example, like Russia is obviously like the biggest country in the world, but if you put it like on a realistic scale, it's the same distance like Morocco to Egypt. But because it's far north from the globe, it appears a lot bigger in relation. And for India, it's directly the opposite because it's right at the equator. It's a lot bigger when it appears on the globe, and it's immense distances on very sometimes bad road conditions. And for a lot of destinations, you need inland flights. And also, if you think about population of India, it's 1.4
Oh, I think it's the highest population in the world.
Finland, yeah.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. They overtook China, I think, 2 years ago, and it's so many people and such an intense culture shock also to Europe. I traveled a lot before in many regions around the world, but India is like a very kind of special culture, very interesting also. Like you can't compare it with anything else. It's something totally unique. Yeah, you have to fall in love with India. It's an amazing country and totally diverse. Like the north part of India is totally different to the south. West is different to the east. I mean, we have cultural differences in every country if you think about it, but not in this intensity.
I can completely understand. So I went to like a holiday festival type thing last year called what was it? So in Malaysia, there's a pretty big Indian culture, and what's the name of the holiday? Tai Pusam. A lot of people have seen it on TV where you'll see people kind of putting hooks in themselves, and they're just it's. I don't want to call it self mutilation because I feel like that sounds bad, but it's the things that they're doing just look absolutely crazy. But it's such a celebration, and everybody would climb up to the top of this temple and they would pray, and they're holding like it's basically canisters of like milk on their head, carrying it all the way in the heat. Super super amazing. Like I'm actually really looking forward to it this year. That's kind of the one nice thing about Malaysia is there's, like you're saying, very big cultural differences. So the celebrations here are absolutely crazy. Like big Chinese culture, seeing them celebrate is amazing. Big Malaysian culture, seeing them celebrate their holidays. Big Indian culture, seeing them celebrate their holidays. It's such an amazing place to be because you get this mixture of different cultures and you kind of see everything. Because I'm obviously from America, but I feel like we're kind of the I don't want to say bland culture, but we're not very colorful and this and that. And sorry, my American listeners and friends. Hopefully I don't get canceled for that. But no, so actually just a couple questions on that. So logistically, you were saying it's pretty difficult. So are you getting your gases and tanks all in New Delhi and then just driving it all the way up there? So you have to get everything before you leave. If you don't get it, you don't have it.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, there's one petty dive center in New Delhi where we rented tanks and an old Bauer compressor. And yeah, when we just did the filling by ourselves in the hotel, and it's also with the Indian electricity, it's kind of difficult. So we had to rearrange some cables, let's say, so keep the compressor running. Yes, we had we did like an to get the pressure. Actually, we filled the helium in a lift bag and sucked out the helium out of the lift bag and back in the tanks like a little cheating gas blending trick. But it doesn't work for the decompression gases because you don't want to have oxygen in your compressor with all the O-rings and oil, etc. It would ruin the compressor, and we just had one, so no redundant compressor. A lot of essential equipment was not redundant because let's, for example, the analyzer. We just had one analyzer. I mean, you could also analyze the gas with your rebreather if you want. And just one compressor and some other stuff was not redundant what we usually have on big projects, but it was not possible just because it we had to fly everything there, and we had to rent some equipment and had to rely on this. So yeah, it was like the whole project success was on a very thin edge, let's say.
I mean, I guess that makes the win that much better, right? When you're actually able to get into the water and do the dive after just kind of hanging on the whole time, and then it's like, okay, we've made it, let's go. And that was actually going to
Mm.
be my next question. So with the location of the cave, I'm assuming it's a pretty sacred area. Was it pretty hard to get the permission to be able to dive there? Like, were they at first like, no, not happening, or were they very welcoming for you to go and explore?
To get the permission is almost impossible, let's say. It's really tough, yeah, because as you said, it's a sacred place and holy water as well. But when you are there, like the locals, not the administrative people, just the prayers who are there, and the locals, they are super interested. I mean, you look like a spaceman to them, right? If you're standing there with a rebreather and in a dry suit, and everybody's super friendly, super interested. I would say Indians in general are like very welcoming people. I mean, we got invited everywhere for a cup of tea and so on. And I can only speak for myself and my team. We were always experienced, yeah, great friendship and felt very welcome as guests.
And it was just a was it just a two person team?
Oh, no, no. It was we had couple of divers with rebreathers. I would say like four rebreather divers. When some open circuit support, we installed a habitat as well. There was a film crew from Berlin. Some of them were most of the divers actually, except one, were GUE trained, which we never seen each other before. It helped a lot with organizing the diving, and everybody spoke about the same stuff, the same procedures, let's say. And we even brought a physician, a dive physician from Germany, from Hamburg, Heinke. She joined me on many projects. So very talented diver and good. She works in the decompression chamber in Hamburg, so she knows a lot about decompression issues. And yeah, I rely on her a lot because when you're in such remote situations and something happens, you need a plan.
Yeah.
With- but with, but this also it's also with projects in Europe, yeah, in such remote places that it takes so much time for the ambulance to pick you up there that we organize the transports and the medical support by ourselves. We have a lot of paramedics in our team. I'm a paramedic by myself from the military times, and so we organize all the, let's say, evacuation part by ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure that's got to be almost a logistical nightmare when you're that far away And I mean, you really have to plan for every scenario at that point, because it's not like, yeah, like you're saying, you can't just go right next door and you have the facility that you need. So no, that definitely must have been quite must have been challenging for sure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So usually, like the first day of a project is we invest a lot of time in the what if scenarios, let's say, and how we get someone out of the water into a transport vehicle, and this vehicle has to be prepared, obviously, to the next decompression chamber or landing zone for a helicopter or whatever.
So do you have the next project planned already to go back there, or is it kind of in the works, or anything you can talk about when you'll be able to make it back there?
So I have many projects in my head for the upcoming years. There's a lot of stuff to do. There's nothing fixed planned for India. So if I speak about dates or details, it will happen for sure, and we're already in the planning phase a little bit, but it's nothing like concrete. But we will do a big project with Cave Base again in summer next year to the GUE project in south of France, which is also like a really big project with a lot of decompression and a lot of team effort involved. There's some good movies on YouTube about it on Cave Base Official. You can check out the YouTube channel. It's a really good one. And in August, I will probably go back to Sardinia to continue Beltorrente with together with Toddy. This is more or less the plan for 2025, besides some side projects, let's say.
As far as India, how do you feel about exploration there? Were you able to scout any other locations besides that cave? Is there a lot of exploration that can be done there?
Yeah, we did a lot of scouting in 2022. We drove around a lot, so actually it was just not too much diving in Bimkund itself. I think we just two one dive actually, where we checked out the entrance in 60 plus, and we dove some other caves, but the conditions are not comparable. It's like bad visibility and quite dangerous. It's not like Mexico, let's say. But there's plenty of beautiful caves everywhere. So I think like from a cave tourist perspective, India will not become a cave destination in the future. It has some exploration potential for sure, also up in the north, in the Meghalaya area, for example, and some other locations. So for exploration, it's quite interesting, but it will not become a tourist destination for cave divers in the future. I don't see it, not at all.
Okay, okay. As far as the other projects you have going on kind of closer to home base, is there anything that you're really excited about?
Like the GUE Cave I spoke earlier is a really interesting project. Actually, we overtook this project from European Cast Plane Project. It's like the European counterpart of WKPP. And they started diving there in the early 2000s. When for a really long time, it was just Reinhard and Michael who were able to reach end of line. When Cave Base did the first dives were 2012. A year later, we also reached end of line, but didn't find any continuation. The problem about this cave in particular is the profile, and this is also the reason why nobody goes there. First of all, you need to install a rope with two stations actually to bring all the gear down, and you need plenty of gear. When it's the profile is actually a nightmare. It goes down to 85 meters, when it goes up to 18, down to 95, up to 35, down to 105, and when up to 23 now. So it's like, and then you have to go all the way back. So it's up and down all the time. So you need to be physical, very tough, especially your ears. And when it comes to the decompression part in 12 degrees water, it's not super cold, but it's also not warm. In this case, you need a habitat and a team. It's not a two-man show. It's impossible, I would say. And yeah, last year, after 16 years of exploration in this cave, we found the continuation close to the previous end of line, but not right there. It's a little bit deeper, and when we could continue for over 300 meters, stopped in an open passage. I think what we will surface there at one point, and which would be a good thing actually. I mean, caves always they go like into the abyss, like super super deep, or they end in a boulder choke, or they go back to the surface. This is like how caves go on, and I think and I hope that we can surface there. That would be a cool thing, and that would be the next step, and then we will see. It's also very long dives, around 10 hours, and yeah, really, really tough. So usually I start at the beginning of the year with preparation. Yeah, you need to do a lot of cardio sport and test your gear, and it's a lot of preparation involved. And when the time comes, you have to be you have to be ready, and everything has to work perfectly. Yeah, I'm very excited about this. It's a really really outstanding project. I can highly recommend to watch the videos about it to get a better imagination how it looks like.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, no, I'll definitely leave a link in the description for people to go and check it out. Well, shit, man, this has been awesome. I just have one last question for you before I let you go. I always like to end on an advice question, and the question that I have is somebody that is, they want to start a project, they want to get something going. What is the best piece of advice that you could give to that person that is looking to start a cave project, or maybe a big project to try to get people involved to search an area, or just or even if it's just a small one and they're trying to do it by themselves? What's the best piece of advice for somebody that is just beginning at the very beginning of starting a project?
So as long as you're certified and trained, I would highly recommend to join a team. Straight from the beginning, I would join a team, and so that you gain some project experience and see how it works, how you organize it, and usually there's some dynamic and energy coming up anyway with our divers, and some project ideas will come up automatically. I will not stick too much on I need to find a cave where I can explore. I would find a team first and some buddies, and harmonize yourself with this harmonization with Ollie, my push diving buddy. It took 5 years, let's say, until we were on the same level and same energy, same mindset, which is super super important. And yeah, when project ideas will come up anyway, I will not stick too much on the location. Go for a team, join a local, and do it locally. If you live in the US, I think there's speleo and cave diving clubs all around, and it is Texas or Florida or Colorado or wherever. Go with the locals and try to do local exploration, which is actually the coolest thing ever. Because if you want to have exploration success, it means to steady go on, stick to one project and focus on it and go on and go on. Don't do the mistake and make a different project every year. As you see on the GUE project, for example, it took 16 years to find the main lead, and also the Bell to Vente project in Sardinia. It will go on for the next 10 years for sure. For future, it's a project for future generation. Yeah, stick to one project, focus on it, get more efficient in the procedures, how you do it. Yeah, when you will have success for sure.
Well, Max, I absolutely appreciate you coming on to the podcast today. This has been absolutely wonderful, and I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I'd love to chat with you more. So I might have to reach out and get you back on to hear about some more of the projects, or maybe after the project in next year we can meet back up and chat, or at some point next year we should definitely. And next year is right around the corner, so it's not too far
It's
off.
true.
You might be seeing an email
Yeah,
from me in like 6 weeks saying, "Hey, come back on the podcast." So.
let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah, I think we will have a lot of interesting topics. I'm here. Thanks for inviting me. I liked it.
Off gassing, a scuba podcast.